show is yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Wilson. Thank you for the opportunity and allowing Wärtsilä to share the global trends. I mean, I call it global trends because shipping is a very, very global business. And thank you, ASME, for this opportunity. Well, thank you for a new name, but I hope it doesn't stick with me. And I'm known as Sanjay Verma in future as well. Okay, so first challenge is the slide doesn't seem to move. So let me sort that out. Yes. The content of today's presentation would be, I would just introduce the company in very, very brief. Then we'll go on to the what is driving the decarbonization. What do we see as a path for decarbonization? I was asked to look at certain fuel options for the marine industry, which I have included, and where is Wärtsilä when it comes to those kind of fuels. Focus areas on ships and ports, and then a few of my observations, which you can take it as a takeaway. Without further ado, let me just introduce Wärtsilä in very, very brief. Wärtsilä is a global leader in smart technology and complete life cycle solution for the marine and energy markets. And as you can see, we were established way back in 1834. We are about 17,800 people globally and in about 200 locations worldwide. Our vision, Wärtsilä's strategy ensures that our purpose, enabling sustainable society with smart technology, can be achieved safely and at pace. Our strategy is to increase customer value in the marine and energy markets through three key focus areas: energy efficiency, life cycle optimization, and innovative solutions. Emission reduction, and especially GHG, greenhouse gas reduction, is the challenge of this century and for maritime industry. Shipping by far is the most economical way and efficient way to transport, but we have to do our part. The industry has now recognized that in order to tackle climate change, shipping must make a significant contribution. As a company with the most comprehensive portfolio at hand in the industry, we must utilize our competitive advantage and turn technology into solutions to enable a sustainable maritime industry. So what is driving this decarbonization? Well, since till last year, we were all talking about NOx and SOx, and 2020 was a year when we switched to low sulfur fuel as well. Well, there are two types. If I can broadly divide emission, these are two types. One is local emission, other one is global emission. Both are as bad, but both affect us differently. Local emissions are NOx, SOx, particulate matters. These impact the environment around the place where they are being generated. And GHG, on the other hand, is a global pollutant which contributes to global warming. So irrespective of where you are emitting this carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases, the effect is global. Sometimes in order to take care of one, there has to be optimization of the other one, because both don't go hand in hand. But there is a challenge in making sure that you optimize both at the same time. IMO, in 2018, they came with an ambition level that they want to reduce the global shipping carbon intensity by 40% by 2030, and reduction of greenhouse gases of 50% by 2050, and gradually phasing it down to zero by the end of this century, within this century. This is to ensure that the global warming rate remains between 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. Well, that is the regulatory part of driver. But now these banks, which is the financing, bank Poseidon principles, you may be hearing this word very often these days, then sea cargo charters and the right ship. Now, all these three things are operational drivers. Poseidon Principal banks, there are now, as per today, there are 25 member banks, which hold about 60% of the total world shipping finance. They have decided that their finance will be based on the emission rating of the vessels. Sea cargo charter, the major cargo charterers around the world, including the names that you see here, have decided that their chartering will be based on the efficiency of the vessel. And so is RightShip. Now they are categorizing ship A to G based on their emission ratings or emission profile. So all these are driving these shipping industry to go towards decarbonized future. And in order that your asset doesn't get stranded after a few years, you have to follow these guidelines, and all these guidelines are aligned. I mean, these are aligned to very much IMO carbon intensity indicators, which will be coming as a regulatory requirement within a couple of years. So what is the pathway? If we look at shipping, there are two aspects. One is the ship by itself and the ecosystem around the ship. And if you can see the ship, now ship has to be, of course, decarbonized. And in order to do that, what are you looking at? You're looking at the fuel aspect of the vessel. You are looking at the energy efficiency of the vessel. And then you are looking at how efficiently the ship itself can move in the water. So this is the ship part. But ship is efficient, but if the ecosystem is not efficient, then again, there is a problem. The fleet efficiency, the ship can come very economically or efficiently till the harbor, but if it has to wait for 10 days at the harbor, then again, all the efficiency is gone. If it comes to port and the cargo is not ready, again, the loss of efficiency is there. So the ship and the ecosystem should communicate. And that is what is the focus in decarbonizing the shipping. So you decarbonize the ship, make the ecosystem efficient so that you take care of all these waste in the industry and turn it into efficiency. Now, when we look at the ship, there are two parts again. One part is the fuel pathway and the other part is the vessel itself. So if you look at how you generate energy on the ship, how you distribute energy on the ship, how do you reduce the need of energy to go from point A to point B, and how you optimize the voyage itself by way of having good inputs of weather, good inputs, how the sea is, availability on the port is, so that you can optimize your voyage itself. Then going on the fuel side of it, there are two pathways. One pathway is the liquid pathway, liquid fuel pathway, and the other one is the gaseous fuel pathway. And how we see it today, we are calling LNG as a transitioning fuel, and tomorrow it will transition into other future fuels, which are either zero carbon or carbon neutral fuels. Same goes today, we have heavy fuel and gas oil, and in future we can see liquid biofuel or methanol or synthetic methanol. So there are two pathways for the fuel as well. So when we are looking at these fuel options, what are we are looking at in future? We are looking at LNG, ammonia, methanol, and hydrogen. These are the four most talked about fuel today for the future, and especially for the future when you're looking at ammonia, methanol, and hydrogen, but they have to be green, not the ammonia that you get today, not the methanol that you get today. They are made from fossil fuels, so they are dirtier than their footprint is much more than that of your heavy fuel or diesel fuel. But they have all different properties, and these properties are not all good. Say, for example, we are looking at the storage of this. Then, when you're looking at hydrogen to be stored in a smaller volume, then it has to be liquid. And if it has to be liquid, it has to be super cryogenic, minus 253 degrees Celsius. Today, we are having problem with LNG, but in storage. But if you look at hydrogen, it is much more cryogenic than that. Then there is ammonia and methanol somewhere in between. Methanol is the best fuel among these four when it comes to storage part. But then you look at the other part. The heating value of this methanol is 3 times less compared to the fuel that you are using today. So again, it has some problem. Ammonia, it is there, but again, it has problem in its toxicity and how to burn this. It has corrosive nature as well. So all these have different issues, and then the availability is the main challenge of the green or zero carbon footprint fuel of these. So just to represent it in a graphical format, if you see for the same volume of fuel which you carry on the ship, with hydrogen you can go for 5.3 days, and with LNG you can go for 14 days, and both ammonia and methanol are somewhere in between. So in future you would find that it won't be a single fuel future. It will be a mixed fuel. I mean, depending, again, the ships are very different. There are certain ships which are plying near the coast, those who are plying in the harbor, and then you have the international shipping. So international shipping will follow a different pathway, but the coastal and near shore vessels may have a different fuel in the future. Looking at Wärtsilä, where we are in terms of these fuel, well, when it comes to LNG, we have these engines since 1986 actually, and in the marine industry since 2003, and we have more than 4,000 engines operating. So this is a well-established fuel for Wärtsilä, and also it has a proper pathway from LNG, that is a fossil LNG today, to bio LNG tomorrow, to synthetic LNG in future. So it has a pathway to go till 2050 as well. Methanol, we have been running this engine on methanol since 2015. So we have an experience of five years roughly, and we more than 5 years actually, and then this technology is proven. We know how to burn these, but today methanol that we get is again not a green methanol. Ammonia, we have already started testing on ammonia, and we already have order to supply ammonia engine within 2022. So the testings have started. The real engine test will start next month, and next year we will be delivering this engine to a customer in Norway. Hydrogen, we have already tested a mix of hydrogen and ammonia, hydrogen and natural gas, and we have burned in a ratio of 30% hydrogen and 70% natural gas on our engine. We are testing hydrogen engine, gradually increasing the hydrogen share, going up to 100% hydrogen. And this will happen, but we don't see it coming in the marine industry. The offtake will be more on the land-based power plants, where gas can be supplied, hydrogen can be supplied in pipelines. At the same time, we are doing testing on all other fuels as well. As I told earlier, LPG, methanol, ammonia, these fuels are being tested, and within the time frame, as I showed earlier on the slide, these engines will be ready. So this is the vessel which is running on methanol, Stena Germanica. We had converted the existing diesel engines to methanol engines, and they have been running for more than 5 years now. This is the project in Norway, which I talked about, where we would be supplying the ammonia engine running on ammonia. So that was the fuel part. Now I will go on the energy efficient part of the vessel. Now you would be hearing more and more about hybrid, and why this is coming is because of the cost efficiency, lower operating and maintenance cost, flexibility because it can use the energy source which is available today, and it has provision to use the energy source for tomorrow. And well, it is all being driven because of course, the environmental regulations. So it reduces your environmental footprint as well. I'm showing some examples, and I have kept the Singapore. I mean, although the same things are available, whether you call it new build or retrofit, but I'm giving some references because it helps in understanding the Singapore context. We have the industry here. We have an established industry which can very easily adapt to the conversion of these vessels to hybrid vessels. So these existing platform supply vessels, as you can see, these are being converted, and they have been converted for last 3-4 years. So there are many references. I'm just picking up a few just to show that these are kind of things which the local industry can gear themselves up to provide these services of conversion. So you see here, what is being done is the hybrid solution is being provided in a container, and that container goes on to the platform supply vessels or other kind of vessels which can provide the hybrid energy on the ship. So there are many references, and then I will come to another industry which is starting to grow, and it will keep on growing, is the wind farm industry. And wind farm industry is very similar to the offshore industry that the Singapore is so familiar with. And a very small transition is needed to start building or start going into these. I mean, I know that already some yards here are catering to that, but this is one industry where the local industries can gear themselves up to supply and to service these kind of vessels. Then I will go on to electrification. Why electrification? Because more and more grid is getting green. And when I say grid is getting green, is that solar and wind, they are coming into the play of providing power to the grid. Now, by having this, you can supply the power to the ship when the ship is alongside the port. Also, more and more ships are becoming hybrid and with battery, and they would require assistance from shore to supply electricity to them. So this is again an industry which is growing very fast around the world, and for the shore power or for the battery technology or for the hybrid industry. So these are kind of future future-proofing your businesses. Another industry which can pick up in Singapore very fast is the electric or hybrid ferries. We see a lot of small ferries which are moving around Singapore, and these can easily get to this level of electrification or hybridization. Then another area of electrification and hybridization is the port support crafts, whether it is pilot boats or you talk about the tugboats or other smaller boats which are not going far from the coast and could be charged from shore. So there is a tendency of going to hybrid on the first step, and the next step to go on to electrification, a total electric tug. So these are happening, and these will be the future. This will be the future because it also provides financially acceptable investment, means there is a return on your investment. So apart from meeting the environmental regulations, you would also need your financial points. Then this is another area to make the ship more efficient, and we see more and more requirement, and as you can see, most of the ships are struggling to meet the EEXI ratings which have been introduced by IMO, and they would be, and then further down they have to meet the carbon intensity so that they have to make the ships more efficient. And these are some of the efficiency booster technologies from Wärtsilä, which help in improving efficiency, but I'm sure there are many others also which are offering similar things. But my idea to bring it forward is the opportunity lies in this area. Roughly about 30,000 ships around the world would need to be fitted by some solution or the other to bring down their carbon intensity. Just to give you an example, that an existing vessel, by having a combination of these, you can improve the efficiency up to 10 to 18%, as you can see here. And the ROI means the investment is also well acceptable within the acceptable limits. And then again, the carbon dioxide reduction from the ship, which is required to meet the carbon intensity indicators. Well, this is happening internationally, but even locally, MPA and SMI, they have a focus towards electrification. There are funds available, and the local companies should innovate themselves to go towards these, and the supportive government here in Singapore will help you in doing that. So these are some of the calls which are there. Now there is the next generation port, which is going to have many of the things that I talked about that ecosystem needs. Then again, this is another area where the local industries can look at the providing power from the shore power. For the more and more vessels are going to be electrified, the more will be the requirement of these. Or this is an essential for the industry, shipping industry, to go towards electrification. Then there are these digital solutions, which are fleet operation solutions, and weather routing, and your electronic charts can you get real time information of the weather, and then you can improve your fleet efficiency. So this is more on the ecosystem which I was talking about. This is another example of just-in-time arrival, that the ships, they can optimize their speed so that they don't have to wait. Straight away they go on to port. So this not only improves the efficiency of the vessel, but it also is a safety thing, which improves the safety when there are not so many ships at the anchor. So coming to the key takeaways or a summary of what I talked about, there is no one single future fuel. At least the path is not clear as of now. And there will be a variety of fuels in use, again, depending on short sea shipping, international shipping, or harbor shipping. So there will be different fuels in the future. What needs to be done is that you think wisely and invest in the fuel flexibility so that your ship today, because ship has a life of almost 25 to 30 years, so that your vessel doesn't get stranded in future because of the regulations, because the regulations are going to tighten even further. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to look at ways to make sure your vessel is not stranded. We feel that the dual fuel engine that we have is the right choice at this moment because the pathway is not clear and it allows you to go on either liquid pathway or the gaseous pathway as they become more clear in future that which pathway is the best pathway. Energy saving devices will play a key role in reducing the carbon intensity, as I mentioned. Energy management hybrid solution will be the popular choice for all kind of vessels. It may not be so much for the larger ships, but it will very much be part of the smaller to medium sized vessels. And at the same time, the battery technology is improving, the fuel cell technology is improving. So you might see it gradually going on to the international shipping as well. Electrification for the smaller ships, port support crafts, tugs, pilot boats, and small ferries. For port decarbonization, electrification will play a very, very important role in cold ironing, supplying power to the ships which come there, charging infrastructure that needs to be developed, the electrification of port, electric cranes, trucks, lifts, etc. Your use of data on the port to promote just-in-time arrival and transparency in the port services, whether it is bunkering service or ship handling services or all kind of services that go on the ship will be more data driven, will be more transparent so that the vessel does not have to wait for these things, and there is just in time, just like the ship and port, there is also just in time for these services available. Wilson, so with this, I will stop my monologue and you can take over.
All right. Thank you so much, Sanjay.